Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining today's webinar with Tameka Bryant. We are extremely excited to have her on board. This is, again, part of Showami's continual education through our webinars. We host different webinars to help agents just like you learn more and more. That's just one of the core values at Showami. Now, if you haven't heard of Showami, we're an on-demand showing agent service. What that means is we help show homes when you are sick, on vacation, or 2 hours away, or you're helping sell international real estate and need help with your home, help back home. Now, I want to introduce our guest, Tameka, because I couldn't think of a better person to teach and kind of even educate all of us, including myself, about international real estate. She is in it. She is helping people who run Fortune 500 companies buy international real estate. She has been doing real estate for years. She has been, teaching at NAR. In fact, that's where I met Tameka, was in between one of her classes there. And I was like, you have to be on our webinar. I am so excited. Tameka, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me. This is what I love to do, right? Educate, talk, and one of my favorite pastimes is investing in real estate. That's what I do all day long. So thanks for having me.
I am so excited. So let's start from the beginning. Like, why did you get into international real estate?
Okay, so the very beginning was I was in my early 20s, crazy, living in New York, and went to Mexico and decided to buy real estate in Mexico. So that's how I originally, that's my first interaction with investing in real estate. But I'm not going to take you through all of that, fast forward where we are now. And really I started focusing more on it after or during the time I was teaching a few classes for NAR. So there was a time that I taught 3 classes overlapping and I probably met some of your viewers at one of these places. So I used to teach At Home with Diversity, another course called Employer Assisted Housing, and Expanding Housing Opportunities. Okay, so if you take all 3 of those courses, my mind was shifted into a space of I need to create more housing opportunities because at some point there's not going to be enough affordable housing in any major city in the US. And that's what the Expanding Housing Opportunities course told real estate professionals all over this country for the last 20 years. And guess where we are today?
Oh, I can
Not
tell you,
enough
there's
affordable.
definitely some markets that I can tell you there is not
Right,
there's an affordability issue in a couple
right. We
markets
have
for
affordability
sure.
issues. And so when you have an affordability issue with, traditional home buyers, that also means that the new investor, I always put myself in that space because when I started investing, I was that person that needed affordable housing options for me to start building my portfolio. So if all of those properties are gone out the market, where are the investors going to buy and find affordable rental options? Okay,
Yeah.
so that was in the back of my brain, as well as I'm at this time I'm the president of my MLS. I'm doing a bunch of stuff in my market and volunteering, and I started to see the shift in cities around saying you can't do this with your personal property. You can't do this with this property. And I said, wow, they're starting to put some restrictions on what us as investors can do in our own markets. So I got to find more inventory for my investors. It's all I kept saying. I got to find more inventory for myself. And then if you fast forward to today and cities like Atlanta, where if you're an investor, you can't own more than 2 Airbnbs in the city of Atlanta.
So you're just and I see that everywhere, right? We're even seeing HOAs completely just say, nope.
Correct. Correct. So I had to go find more inventory for myself, for my investors, and for people who I knew wanted to build their, wealth with real estate. And so that's how I started digging a little deeper into it. And of course, I had my office down in Panama City Beach. So I was using that as a lot of research and talking to a lot of investors and figuring out what would they need in order to start feeling comfortable about investing internationally.
Hmm.
And so that's what I built from there on out.
Yeah, and I know we're going to definitely touch up on the programs that you teach and
Mhm.
some of the resources you have for those that are interested in starting to
Yeah,
sell internationally. So, guys, stay towards the end because those resources will be given later on.
awesome.
So, now how long have you been in business doing this and what do the transactions look like?
Okay, so I can say that once I opened, and I do have a brokerage in the States, and we're in several states, but the brokerages that I have overseas were just here in the last couple of years. So you'll see our brands in those markets just a couple of years ago, because once we got through the last 4 or 5 years, so right after COVID is when I saw our market just shoot up, rocket into people now wanting to get outside, right? Now being able to go and travel. And that's when we were full time in business, rocking and rolling in the international space. So that in itself took us from, about a couple of years to identify which markets we wanted to focus on first, because not all markets are the same. So when you start to look at areas like a Dominican Republic, a Mexico, um, just if I just take those two, operate totally differently, and we had to set up teams that could understand how to do that. So commissions and commission structures and how you get paid, all of those things. I just said, hey, let's simplify this so that we can have more people be able to enter the market, understand what they're doing, work with their investors, because let's face it, there are 9 million of us US citizens living abroad who have, how did they get there? They packed up, they purchased real estate, and if we're not in the middle of those transactions, we're being left behind ourselves. And so that's how I started. That's how I got going. And so each market is, there's just a little bit of a different playbook
Mhm.
based on the rules and regs and the governing bodies that are in that particular market. So a market, for example, like the Dominican Republic, there is no MLS.
Yeah.
You know, there is no governing body. There's no real estate commission. There's no real estate license.
So do you just show up with a bag of cash and you just buy the house? I gotta know.
That would not be smart to do, because there is no easy way of going to check the liens on a property. There's not like a one-stop title company, go onto the corner and go get it done. That's not how it happens. So that's why, I had to create an environment for real estate agents and those who are not real estate agents to be able, who want to and are interested in buying and selling in those places. So yeah, so no, it's not that way. It's like it's so different than how we do business here, down to, how do you find a property that you're looking for if
Yeah,
there's no MLS?
right? It's like, do you just drive around? Do you
Sometimes,
sometimes you're
sometimes,
gonna have to.
sometimes you have to, sometimes you have to find the other real estate agents that are there. And one key thing that I learned a few years back is that what we know about the brokerages and the name brand brokerages that are here in the States, they're not the same overseas.
Yeah, they have to operate to the laws of everything that's going on there.
Correct. And sometimes it's not good. So where we may have a good, where we know this is a great brand and they stand behind this and we can, that's not how it operates in the other places. And so that was a bit of a shocker for us, because there were a lot of scammy brands that we were running into. And because we know them and trust them here in the States, that's not how it operates internationally.
But, let's talk about transactions. I know you
Yeah.
showed me the number of transactions that you've run, and I'm impressed. So throw the number out. You got this.
So the overall, my real estate career, I've sold a little more than, I think it's 3,119 as of today, and closed real estate transactions. Me personally, not my team, not my corporation or anything like that, just me personally. So a real estate transaction in all of these different areas. It's just a little different, but not very much different than what we do. So right now, for example, I've got clients who are buying in Ghana,
Okay.
and I have another group of investors who are planning on buying in Guyana. And my largest group right now are buying in Mexico. But what they're buying is they're buying land so that they can have their homes built.
Ah,
And so that's the difference with these different areas, because you can pretty much focus on whatever it is. And so for us, me and the real estate companies that we work with, we don't only look for residential opportunities, but we also look for commercial opportunities. So,
mm,
for example, a company like yours would benefit to going into some of these markets who don't have showing, services and all these other things. So we open up those doors for those as well. So a transaction, for example, if we are working with, we currently right now have a contract to work with the largest land developer in Mexico. Okay.
yeah.
So when we go in, I get the contract so that all the agents on my team are able to market, do the marketing and advertising and do everything they want to do on social media. And a lot of them do that and sell right from the States. They don't even have to get on the ground to take an investor there, because our tours that happen every month, our staff on the ground handle those. So
Hmm.
when people are thinking about like commissions and what that looks like, because I know people are always asking, like, how much money can you make? Um, there's a range. I've seen everything from 2% to 10% on commissions, just depending on who it is, who the client is, what the seller is, what the buyer's doing. So it's like there's no standard amount, but it operates very much the same, that you have commissions that are in that space. So Cancun, Dominican Republic operates a little different. We're seeing a lot of buyers who want the Dominican Republic because Punta Cana is the #1 destination place right now. So a lot of inventory has been moved in that market because of so many people wanting to vacation there. And once they
Got
get
it.
there and they're going, wow, the weather is 80 degrees in January. And I live in, Alaska. My city feels like Alaska in January. I'd like to have a direct flight right from Atlanta, right into the Dominican Republic, or right from Kansas City and right into Cancun. I could be on the beach in 3 hours. I'm interested.
Speaking of beach, like I will say that the majority of the results that we're seeing from that survey, thank you everybody for filling out that survey. I just shared that with you, Tameka, as well. And we're seeing a lot of Bahamas, Jamaica, Costa Rica, Belize,
Yeah,
Ghana, um, Portugal. I got quite a bit of Portugal on here too. So very cool to see. Like everybody's thinking that, a little bit of that beach vibe for sure.
of course,
So
of
that's cool
course.
to see.
Yeah, of course. I don't know many people who, and I think that's a thing when people have thought about where they were going to retire, right?
Ah,
Where am I going to retire? What does retirement look like? More and more people, believe it or not, are saying, let's start that process now. Why do we need to wait? Because prices of real estate are just going to keep going up. So if you can find an opportunity where an owner or a developer is willing to do, for example, the project we work on in Mexico, how about, Josh? They do the financing. There's no credit check, 0% interest on the first, yes,
what?
0% interest on the first 3 years. I mean, like, and more than 50% of the people who are buying, and this is in Cancun and Merida, um, the more than 50% who are buying are US citizens.
Hmm.
So when you go back and you're like, who is buying? It is us. We're the ones who are buying in places like Cancun and, Dominican Republic and these different places, because again, we're looking at retirement, we're looking at Airbnb income. we're looking at, where are our parents going to reside? And so a lot of what I'm seeing even more so now is that the retirement community is saying, I can't afford a retirement home here in the States. I can't afford the health care. So I need to look at other places that are affordable. And that's where they start looking at Panama and Dominican Republic, where you can have a nurse for $500 a month, or a live-in nanny for a few $100s. So the quality of life in these places are affording us to do and have better lifestyles, and we don't have to wait until we're dead tired to enjoy it.
You actually touched up on something that I've seen, actually experienced. So my wife is from Brazil,
Mhm.
and her grandparents during certain times will go down to Brazil and get health, get
Yeah,
care. Specifically when they're there, they have, a full-time nurse there helping them because it is so much less expensive. Problem is that living in Brazil, there's no air conditioning and a whole lot less amenities to the American lifestyles that they struggle still to live there. But
right.
that was something I found very fascinating was, and to your point, like some people are like, I will just retire there because, hey, I think I have somebody taking for way less taking care of me. And that kind of brings me to that second poll where I quickly typed it up. I want to ask everybody, where would you buy a home outside of the US? I'm curious. I think, we were talking about you might want to sell homes in some of these areas. And I was very,
Hmm.
interested in most people put a lot of, um, they didn't, what I was very curious was they didn't put a lot of Northern European countries, which I always thought to me, that doesn't seem like such a bad idea because I'm sure A, it's more structured, but B, the commissions might be a little bit nicer. And maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, you
I,
know, depending on, I haven't, there's price points all over the board,
yeah,
and right now, I'm working on a property that for one client that's 75,000, and a property for another client that's $3.9 million.
yeah.
And so in the same the same country. So that's why selling in these places, it's about your network, right?
Hmm.
So part of what's made us so successful, and me personally, is that more and more people are asking me, well, where have you invested? Where have you purchased a home? Because wherever you purchased a home, I don't mind being your neighbor. And so, come on, be my neighbor. Like, I own a penthouse over here, and you should buy the one right next door so that when mine's is full, I can help you rent yours, or if we just have our own community. So, we're seeing people in groups just kind of going, well, we'll buy these 10 properties, and
Hmm.
now we have our own community. So, in a lot of places, you're seeing American communities in places because, of course, I buy, if you buy, you and your wife buy, then you might have a sister or cousin who says, oh, well, I'm interested, or I'm interested in buying together. So we see a
Yep.
lot of partnerships, coming together for people who are buying houses and things like that, or villas together. So that's why I said the amounts and the commissions and what you want to do with it is kind of open to really your network and who you want to focus on.
Huh. That's interesting. And you kind of touched up on like meeting these people. I mean, first of all, when you start talking about, oh yeah, I own a house in Mexico, people are like, tell me more.
Right? How much?
Right? Like, I feel like that's a great, great intro. But if you're not doing something like that, is it mostly just hosting get-togethers to talk about international investing? What sort of things have you seen work? What can you touch about? I know I don't want to give away all your trade secrets.
Oh, no, no, it's okay. Most people are, the circle of people that I work around and with all the time are mostly investors and real estate agents. So, and most of the real estate agents are new investors because they're looking up and saying, I've helped all of these other people make all this money in real estate, but I have not added enough real estate to my own portfolio for me to retire. So, where are affordable options? Where can I find real estate where I can put on a payment plan, So when people ask, oh, I don't know if I can afford it, and I say, well, how much do you spend on Starbucks each month?
Yeah.
And I'm like, if people are buying land and real estate, with $150 per month, yeah, I think you can afford to invest internationally, because those are some of the opportunities that we, seek out for our investors. We want a lot more of people who need us to help them. I always tell people, really, really wealthy people don't need me to help them find real estate. It's people who are in the trenches in real estate, my real estate agents, my other real estate professionals who have worked 10 years, 5 years, got their real estate license because they themselves wanted to invest. And 10 years later, they didn't buy anything. They didn't build a
Hmm.
portfolio because they've been so busy. So, and that's just what happens. And I made my first million, Josh, on buying and holding real estate.
Hmm.
And so, and that's how, when I entered the market as a real estate agent, I was already an investor. So when I got in and I kept seeing so many real estate agents not able to retire, I'm going, what's going on? Are you guys not, you're, you got to, you're in the business. You're not even getting higher in your own supply. You know, like, you got to buy real estate and hold it, just like you tell other investors. And so I just made sure that every market I go into, I connect with the developers who have options that are attainable for my client base. And my client base looks like me, looks like you. We're the real estate professionals and business owners that are out here helping everyone, but nobody's necessarily helping us to build our wealth. And
Hmm.
so that's my focus and who I work with. And while you'll see options that are $100,000 up to 400,000 is our main focus points for real estate opportunities for people to access. And then you'll always see that I will focus on developers who will do payment plans and payment options, so that it's attainable for people. So it becomes a part of, your budget. You can budget in investing. It doesn't have to be, I need $500,000 to get started.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and what's key about this, Josh, is that the developers, as agents, when we work in new construction, for example, we tend to get paid at the end of the transaction. In this space, we get paid at the beginning. So you
Okay.
get paid your commissions on the front end.
I hope you guys are listening. So keep in mind on new developments internationally. Now, especially when you're considering, I'm going to touch up on your guys' favorite places. So Jamaica, we
Hmm.
got Italy in here, and we've got Mexico. So you guys can be Tameka's neighbor.
That's right.
Selling, doing this overseas, you make it up front. Thanks, Natalie. That's good. Very nice to hear. She says this is amazing to hear.
Right. Because I mean, I've been there. And so if you think through it, if you guys are working with, and I know we have some savvy investors and savvy real estate agents on here, but if you're working in new construction, right? And just think about it. If a developer says, hey, you bring 10% down or you bring 20% down, and then your client makes the payments, the developer already has your commission.
Hmm.
So the developer pays your commission on by when your client has already put down that 10 or 20%. You've done your job. You've delivered them a qualified buyer. It's on them to get the rest of their payments and continue that contract. Unlike what we do here in the States, because it's the whole, mortgage thing, and you got to wait for it to be built and all that stuff. So we negotiate a lot of that stuff on the front end, so that our agents and the people who are in our network don't have to do all of that on their own.
I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's brilliant. It's the right way. It's a great way of thinking. And I'm gonna run through. So let's jump into an area. So let's talk about, since I've gotten a lot of people interested in both selling and buying in Mexico.
Uh-huh.
Let's use that as an example,
Yeah.
because I know our next point is, do you need a license to do you need a license in that country? I think that's the question. And let's talk about Mexico and how that buying and selling process looks there.
Okay. So the buying and selling process, that when we enter into agreements with our development uh, contracts and things like that, none of our agents are required to have a real estate license. So that answers the
That really answers that real quick.
that answers that.
So you're saying I could just I could buy,
Yeah.
and
So
sell.
and
Interesting.
that's why I tell people you have, it's good and it's bad,
Sure.
right? So but
Because it
Mexico,
can
like they
get you in a
have
lot
an
of sketchy
MLS, they
deals,
have
I'm
some of those
sure.
things. But yes, you have a lot of sketchy people, you have a lot of sketchy deals. And when you have so many projects and things going up, normally when people go on their own, they don't really know how to vet
Mm,
a developer or a project or any of those things, or to identify if something a scam or not a scam, or who they're buying with or not buying with. So part of our what we do is when we go in, we will select certain developers, and then we get those developers approved. We vet them. That's why it takes us a little longer. We vet each one of the developers. So, and then we open that project up to all of our international sales agents and say, hey, here's the marketing docs, here's the information, come on tour. And that's another way that we protect our agents and their clients, is we offer tours every month or every other month in those particular markets. So they themselves or their people can come on tour and talk to these developers and get to see the materials and the projects and things like that right on set. And then an added piece that we have is that if there, we have ambassadors in our program. So if there are people who don't want to buy in a development project like new construction, and they want to do a one-off or something that's listed with someone else, we then tie them in with an agent that represents that area, and then that agent will work with that other agent with their client. So I don't ever recommend people to go in to a brand new market, not know what's going on, to do their very first transaction and not have a support system in place. And that's why I built this, because as an independent broker, I wasn't afforded to kind of go with I just like, I don't want to go here. So I hear a lot of like the franchises say, oh, we have offices all over the place, but they all operate differently. So that really wasn't
mhm,
going to help me either. So that's why we kind of created more of a protected kind of program. Because again, I'm all about the investor and the independent brokerage. So, and having had some hiccups and some things that didn't go well, we knew better how to kind of protect that. And so, if, for example, if you came to the Dominican Republic with us, you'd see that my projects and the things I work with are approved by the Minister of Tourism. So
mhm.
we work hand in hand with the U.S. Embassy, the Minister of Tourism, and things like that to vet our products and programs.
Yeah, and before the call, we actually even talked about what these tours look like.
Mhm.
So everybody that's kind of listening, what Tameka and her team does is they will help with taking on your clients and pairing even a travel advisor and giving them an experience in the area. It's not just I'm there to visit homes
Right,
and I'm here to visit and see land in the area. I'm here to experience the culture along with it, but also tie it in. And sometimes, if you're, we were even talking about this, like they may already have a trip there.
right,
And now we're going to pull them away from their excursions for a little bit. This is also why you really want to work with, travel advisor who can plan this out for you and your client. You kind of give it off to them. They'll go do the tour of the homes and then come back in time for their next excursion. So it is important to note that that's the process and how these work, because it's not just, hey, we're going to fly out there and see 3 homes and then head back.
right, right.
Like,
And
no,
and the guided
it
tours, and I
doesn't look
tell
like
people,
that.
I tell people all the time, the guided tours that we do, if there are people, and I know some people who have been on tours are here, they can tell you, our tours for our real estate agents and who are coming to vet projects and coming to look and shop for their clientele, they come in on a Thursday, Friday morning, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. We are on tour. They've got notebooks, they're taking notes, they're meeting with all the developers. getting projects. Saturday, the same thing. The times that we do have breaks and things like that are a part of the tours where we're going to the beach to have breakfast, to have lunch, or, understanding the feel for a neighborhood, or, walking from this neighborhood to this neighborhood. People will go, I thought, I'm like, no, this is not a vacation. If you want a vacation, then you have to kind of create your own tour with your, and add that this investment tour is for you to get educated, and so that your clients, what to go back and be able to share with your clients. So, and that's tour looks a little different than what we do in the Cancun area, because that particular one has so many options that those tours can be a week long. So we kind of decide on what we're going to do with, depending on who's coming,
Mhm.
and which developer is sponsoring. So sometimes we may get up at 6 in the morning and drive to Merida to look at a brand new development project, because people want to get an idea of what it feels like, because the Cancun project is underway, but it's right now just jungle. So they want to see, what is my house going to look like, or what is my project going to look like? And we take them all the way out there. And so this last year in November, the bullet train it's called the Mayan train, was opened in Cancun now. So you can actually get on the train and get to these places now. And that was not there before. So that has also made the increase in pricing, where a lot of our investors have already purchased. All of their properties have went up in value already,
Now we
just
did get a
since opening that.
question. Well, I was about to head to Q&As, so this is kind of perfect way to lead into it. How do we sign up for one of these tours as an agent?
If you are your all of our international sales agents are, we have a certain group with them. So we actually certify agents and people who want to sell, so we can give you all the tools you need. And then we invite investors and other people onto those tours. And on both of those areas, they are to go to international sales agents with an S at the end.com, and they can look on there and see which tours are coming up. We also do tours, which is fun for us. We do something called a Beyond Borders tour, and those tours are here in the States. So we are in the States bringing this information to people in their market. So like we have one coming up in Palm Springs, another one coming up in Miami this month. And we just kind of, and sometimes, well, on both of those, we're bringing developers from Mexico to those, so that they can kind of talk to people before they go on an international tour and pack up their bags and go overseas. So we do it that way as well. And we do education every week on our Zoom calls. So we'll have developers come on Tuesdays to talk about their projects and what they can expect on a tour. So there's lots of ways that they can connect, on the ground, here, internationally, online. It's about educating people is what's most important for us. But I tell you, for the last couple of years, it has been so refreshing for me. I've been to the most beautiful beaches. And I always tell people, people are like, oh, you're real estate. I'm like, real estate isn't local. Real estate is global.
Yes.
And I am just too old now to be in places I don't want to be. So if I want to be on a warm beach somewhere, then I just made sure I created me places and opportunities for me to be able to do that. So being able to use what I have from real estate, what I learned in all these years of training, and to be able to apply that in a place like a Cancun, or um, Costa Rica, Las Terrenas, and wherever, and sell and educate people on real estate and help investors make more money. I can do that anywhere, right? So
Mhm.
I just decided, once I was an empty nester, I choose to do that overseas. And
Yeah.
so now I've moved into, and I don't know if I told you this, Josh, but we just started working on a hotel.
Okay.
Because in every market that we're in, remember I told you we build and we bring businesses too,
Yeah.
because every market we go in, once one of us goes in, There's 100 of us. So then we need services for those 100 of our investors who were there, or whatever number that came with us. So we're now working on, a hotel project as well, the
Oh,
first one.
wow. That's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. And so, I wrote an ebook, and it's about the top questions that people want to know about buying property in the Dominican Republic. And I'm going to do another one for the other markets we're in when I slow down, whenever that is, right? Um, but a question people tend to ask and want to know, and investors always want to know, is do they own the land? And, things like that. And I always tell people, you have to know which jurisdiction you're in, because countries not only operate differently, but even in the jurisdictions within those countries. So a lot of information, and this will be a question somebody's going to have, is can I own the land in the Dominican Republic? Like if I bought a condo, do I own it? There, yes, you have a title, you own the land, it's yours. It's very similar to what you do in the US. Then I'll get a question about, you know, Ghana. Can you own the land? I heard you can't own the land. No, you can't own the land in Ghana, but they give you what's called like a 50-year lease or a
Hmm.
100-year lease on the land. So understanding those differences is where I tell people, before you jump out there, you want to know how to do this or what to do. And so a lot of questions always come up from Mexico is, can I hear you can't own the land in Mexico? You have to have a trust that owns the land, but you own the trust.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm just jumping in and answering some of those questions that I know some people are already going to have a question for. And our top 10 markets that right now that we are focused on, we're focused on 4 where we have projects, which are Dominican Republic, Mexico, Ghana, and Guyana. And then we also have opening up the Bahamas. And you got to understand, Bahamas, Jamaica, all of those places may have individual properties for sale, but that's not our model. Our model is to go in where there are lots of development going on or new developments going on. So right now we just are started to work with Panama because they have new projects, because it doesn't make good sense for us because we have about 300 international sales agents, that if I go into a market that only has 3 properties for sale, that
It doesn't, we're not going to
that
sit there and
doesn't
invest a whole lot of
no.
time in this. I
Right.
completely agree. Man, we've got questions galore. So,
And the last thing before I answer this one,
yes.
and we open up opportunities for developers, Josh.
Okay, so you go in there, you kind of negotiate some contracts and say, "Hey, I want as a developer, you should be looking and coming in here with me,
Correct.
and I bring investors." I think
Correct.
it's brilliant. It's a great I think
Correct.
that's the right that's the that's the model that makes the most sense, right? Like,
Right.
hey, I'm not gonna go in here without an army behind me.
Right.
And I don't want to go in with a local I don't know who this person is that's developing this project.
Right.
You want to know who's building the homes, who's gonna take care of the land
Correct.
security and local amnesty. So very, very smart, very
Right,
cool.
because we are there to protect the American investor who is investing overseas, not
Yes.
there just for a commission. Commissions are great. However, you having a great home, having a safe home and a safe place, and all those other things are the other pieces and the benefits that we're interested in.
Absolutely. All right. So, what are the steps of getting started with facilitating real estate transactions overseas?
If you're going it alone, or if you're going in with the international sales agent program that we have, you can just go right to that website, and it's a really simple process. You go on, you register, you go to class. It's about an hour. It's me going over your basic pieces, and then after you're finished, you would then just join our network, and that's where you start getting your trainings every week. You get access to all the marketing materials for all these projects. So it's like everything is done for you, right? The done for you package is there. Then, if you decide you want to do this on your own, then I would tell people that you have to go and best practices are to select one market, go do your research on that one market and finding out how and what you're able to do. Then, of course, you have to find someone who's on the ground who is going to take care of the contracts, who's going to close the deal, who's going to certify the deal. You need an attorney, you know, all the other pieces. If you're going it alone, you want to do those things. Need an attorney. It's best to find a broker that's on the ground that can help you. You want to know how you identify the properties, how you check them out. You want to find a good insurance agent. You want to check in with your embassy there. So there's a lot that goes on into that, but those are the very basic pieces. Don't just go in because you've seen a property online.
And the training website was agents.com, correct?
Right. That's where they would start, and they can find classes, our workshops, because we do our classes and our trainings in person and live. And we host those a couple of times a month, some online, some on the ground, which is the Beyond Borders tour. Because in those classes, then it's me or one of our trainers. We're there for 3 hours, just helping you understand the contracts and the process, and everything, because each market is a little different. So
Yeah,
even down to financing, like you have to spend time and understanding the financing rules for that jurisdiction. So for us, we kind of made it simple, for each jurisdiction, because we did all the work on the front end. So if someone said, oh, well, how do I get is can I get financing from a bank? Yeah, sure. Here's your checklist. Here's what you have to bring. Here's the contact for the bank, you know, things like that. Because, Josh, there are some banks in some of these markets who will pay you a commission for bringing a qualified buyer to the bank, you know,
there you go.
that you can originate, for them without doing anything, just bringing the person. And so, again, if you go it alone, go ask all of those questions. Like, you got to do your homework before you get on the ground and get into that space, or you are easily going to be a target that's taken advantage of.
Absolutely. All right, next question. Are there issues with squatters that you have encountered just like here in the States?
Nope, I haven't encountered any squatters. All of our projects that we work on, probably I think maybe only like some land or something like that, but never squatters on those. All of those are in areas that are protected by security guards and all this kind of thing. So most of the time, you can't even get onto a property, let alone find that there's a squatter, that's there. We have not come across that just yet.
Nice. That's a good thing to know. I
Yeah.
agree. I think it's become such a big thing here in the States, but you have to remember, like in the States, we protect
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
There,
That's not
you're on
like
my
that.
land. I got my gun. Like,
Yeah. Like, you're evicted.
it's,
If you don't
it's
pay
Wild
your,
West style out there.
yeah, if you don't pay your
Some
mortgage or
countries.
something, you're out. There's no six
Yeah.
months to get you out and
No.
get court cases. No, 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 no. Bye.
All right. So is it true that once you buy a property in some international markets, you don't have to pay property tax like we do here?
That is correct.
That's a
Yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah.
so again, that's part
I
of
have
like
two
doing your
properties.
research where you're going.
Yeah,
Certain markets, you don't have to pay the property tax.
that's correct. So I have two properties that I do not pay property tax for. And another property I pay only the property tax over 160,000. So if I have a property that's 170,000, then I only pay the tax on the 10,000.
Yeah.
So yes, there are lots of places that there are no property taxes.
We got asked, what resources can you provide to get familiar stipulations and differences of how to do business overseas? I think that goes back to the link, the international sales agents link. I think that has the resources that you might be looking for.
And I also have if you go on to BE hyphen niched, NICHED.com, I have some free books that are downloads that are on there. And that's one that says like how to buy property in the Dominican Republic. And so there's constantly new materials that go up and come down, go up and come down, just depending on what's there. And but a lot of the information that's out there will change. So for me, what I constantly do is find the leading attorney in each market, and then I go find their websites. And a lot of times they're the ones who are producing a lot of the information of the new laws and new changes. So whichever market you're looking at, one key thing to do is if you go to our US Embassy and ask for a list of attorneys, then or go onto their website if you can find it there, and then they'll give you a list of attorneys that are great to work with that represent US citizens, and find one of those on that list and connect with them, and they're normally the ones who keep up with a lot of the changes in real estate in those particular areas.
Yep, I just shared your Be Niched as well. I had that link already ready to go. Was waiting for that one to get mentioned, so very glad it got mentioned. We did get asked, what's the name of the book that you mentioned? The Dominican Republic ebook, I believe,
It's
is
how to buy or top questions that buyers have about buying in a Dominican Republic.
awesome.
It's like a little pamphlet. It's got like 60 or so questions or 50 questions. So those questions in there, guys, if you take those and look at those, you can also see that those same kind of questions are going to be questions you're going to ask in other markets as well. So if
Yep.
you're interviewing agents or brokers or other people you want to work with, just take that book of questions and kind of go through it. And, that'll help guide you on that.
And I believe they'll be able to find that on Be Niched.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's on there. It's a free download on there. It's probably under freebies. I don't know that it's under books or whatever, but sometimes they move stuff and even go in there and can't find it.
Is financing typically an issue? It didn't sound like it was because there are different financing options that Tameka and her team have learned to leverage in each of the countries that she goes into. So I would say that if you are planning on going into a country alone, and Tameka, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if you plan on going into a country alone, there could be a lot more financial
Mhm.
issues or getting that financing might be harder. But if you go through different programs that people have already kind of paved the way through,
Right.
that's going to be your best bet.
Right. So an example of that is, Josh, and I'll just give someone a quick example, is that there's a developer and banks we work with that they set up like if you decided you wanted to get a checking account open, it could take you 6 hours to do so in the
Yep.
Dominican Republic. Because of our, contacts, we can gather information, get everything going for you, and it only take you less than 2 hours to get your bank account set up. And then that bank account is your entry to do business and get financing for your end product, which that same bank is already doing the loan for the developer. So it makes your transaction, your approval process a lot easier. And you want to know the parameters of that lending institution before you go. So one thing that was an eye opener, Josh, was that when people were ready to do a loan in the Dominican Republic, and I said, hold on, do you recognize that the bank will require them to have an insurance policy on you, on your life, for the amount of this property?
Yeah.
Well, like, what? I'm like, yes, that's one of their requirements. So before you go through that whole process, so that's why when I go in, I have to have multiple ways for us to buy. So that's why I will negotiate owner financing, of course, cash at any time, even credit card,
Yep.
transactions, so people
Uh,
can get their points, you know.
Yeah, and to your point, like, I always, my wife being from Brazil, I actually
Mhm.
know it takes 5 days to get a bank account. Did you know it takes 3 days to get a check submitted to their banks?
Yeah.
Like that's how things operate in their country. And so some of those nuances of financings are going to be in your way. So that's why you really want to, again, talk to people who are already on that path from the US and go with them instead of trying to create a separate path.
Right.
Now, I got a question. Will visas be required? I think it's just required to visit, like not
It
even
just
visit,
depends
right?
on it
Use a
depends on
passport.
the market, but
Okay.
their
To buy.
passports are not even required to buy when you start your process. They'll be
Okay.
required when you're ready to close, but not when you're starting your process. So a lot of developers may have, hey, we have this uh, a year-long relationship. You can start in the name of your, they'll take your driver's license or whatever, and then you may be in the process of getting your passport, and then you get the passport at some point. So no, and some places we're in don't require a visa to even travel there, so they won't
Yeah.
require a visa for you to buy.
Interesting. That's good to know. I think that again goes into do your research
Right.
beforehand. Um, I think that's yeah. Now the next one is we got a question on is there a cost to join? I believe they said the organization, but I'm assuming they're talking about some of your trainings, the
Um,
ones that you
there's there's a one-time cost for the certification.
okay.
That's on the international sales agents. That's if you're getting certified and you want to be a part of our network. So one time, that's it. That's on, I believe it's 299 to be an international sales agent. There are no recurring trainings or things like that. We do our staff conducts our free trainings every week on Thursdays, so you're free to pop in there, ask questions, and then only if you're affiliating with a brokerage or something like that will you see any kind of other fees. But traditionally our agents, I set this up so that people didn't have a whole lot of fees to come in and start earning money. It's like
Yeah,
earn some money before you buy a website, right? Earn some money before you have to do this, because you have to have some to, find your clients and travel and do things like that. So,
absolutely.
and then that's why our commissions and the way things are set up is that there are no splits. So if the developer has a 3% cost, then typically that's it. There's no
Yeah.
split with the brokerage and things like that. So if your commission was $30,000 or that was a 3% or whatever that amount was, there may be a transaction fee to the admin person of like the 495 to make sure all paperwork is in place, but that's it.
Yeah.
you know we just don't see the need to kind of do all of that if people are doing their own, bringing their own clients. We've done all of that other stuff. We pay our own staff and things like that because we allow our developers and our other companies and stuff to kind of handle that. So our offices that are in Cancun and the one that's in Dominican Republic, we have full-time staff there, and so you'll see them on tours and things like that.
Awesome. And what type of properties are investors buying overseas?
Whew. We see a lot of investors buying a lot of condos and villas. So things that they can Airbnb, because that's an easy model that they understand. And because they can do it here and they can, they understand it in the US, it's very similar there in whichever country. So we see a lot of condos. And also because they don't have to worry about maintenance as much on the exterior of properties and price points. So you can get a lot more in your condos and a lot of amenities. But we see it kind of, but I see it more condos being purchased, and in Mexico, I see right now more land
Hmm.
because the land values are the projections that this developer, for example, has. They've been in business 40 years. So they are guaranteeing their projections on the land. So we see a lot of investors buying the land with the zero down. I'm sorry, the zero interest rate, because they can get in with like 500 to 1,000 down, make a payment of like $120 a month, and
Yeah.
then sell the property in 3 years when the interest rate is no longer 0%.
Yeah. It's
So we see a
like
lot of
running the
investors
development and then before you get
correct,
hit by a bank.
correct. So
Wow.
we see a lot of investors, especially our younger investors, doing that because it's flipping paper. You're not
Yeah.
worried about cleaning and picking up trash or any of those kinds of things because they're new development projects. So if you could think of this city bringing in 22,000 lots, and they're going to develop these, they'll all, they'll start being ready in 3 years. So that's what you're paying for.
Anyway, I wanted to say a quick thank you, everybody, for joining today. Thank you, Tameka, for teaching us more about international buying. Like I was, I love that you went into all the processes from securing the loans, securing the developers, knowing, hey, it's more than just saying, hey, I like that piece of property over there or that land. I'm going to go buy it or I'm going to sell it because I mean, why wouldn't I want to make a commission selling overseas? I don't even need a license to do it. And so it was really kind of a lot of excitement, a lot of really great education pieces. So thank you again. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me, Josh.
Absolutely.